Welcome, friends. Today, we are doing a debriefing video. So, today's video is a follow-up to my first impressions video on the House of Strangelove. I bought their Discovery set with their 5 perfumes in. It is each 2ml samples. Very expensive. It was like 60 quid or something like that. $60, £60. I managed to find somewhere in the UK called the Perfume Society, thanks to someone in the chat. Sorry, I forget who they were. And it saved me quite a bit of money because they're like $100, $115 on the website, the Strangelove website, for the sample set. And that's silly for 5 samples. That's just obscene. But that seems to be a bit of a narrative that runs with this brand, as I will come to show you soon. So, here is the sample set, as I'm sure you remember. Since my last video, I have tested all of these on skin, multiple occasions, and I thought that I would come back and tell you what I found about them. We won't be testing them on skin today, but I do have some strips here so that I can remind myself of each one as I go through them, just as an aide-memoire. So, I was going to do the follow-up last week, but I wasn't feeling too clever. But not to worry. I didn't make any videos last week, unfortunately. On the box, I noticed something, and I'm sure I noticed it the first time I smelled them, but I never said anything. It never occurred to us. But if you read here, it says, lavishly imbued with pure oud. And while it might be lavish, and it might be imbued, and it might be pure, and it might be oud, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's any good. I don't think these oud oils are of the highest quality from what I know of oud. My very limited knowledge of oud, and the people who I have as friends who are very much into oud. The problem with this brand is that they've gone in the direction of oud without staying true to what real ouds are. But also, since they've gone in the direction of oud and the East, they haven't stayed true to like Western perfume either. They've gone for that whole East meets West thing. And rather than it become like a whole with a W, it's become disjointed, and it's clashed and it's jarred. These perfumes sometimes smell good and sometimes don't. I feel personally that only one of them is worth any further investigation, and that one is probably the most Western leaning one, which showcases Christophe Laudermiel's talent. And he is talented, he's very good. Very few other perfumers could have made a good go of this, like he has. And this one is called Melt My Heart. This was by far and away my favourite. It was my favourite at the time when I first smelled them, made the best first impression. It is chocolate iris. It is, what else is in it? Something a little bit spicy. Let's have a look at the notes. Nutmeg. Something a little bit floral. There's oud in it apparently. I don't get much of the oud, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll bring them up, I'll sit them up like that. Excuse me. There's a little bit of citrus in the opening, giving a little bit of zing. A little bit of ginger as well. But the dry down, when that big powdery chocolate thing sort of calms down, and it's huge at the beginning, and the orris root takes over, the orris, and it starts to meld with like the oud and maybe the ylang ylang as well, giving it that kind of creamy sort of smooth dry down. It's definitely the most wearable, it's definitely the most civilized, and it's the best one for a Western nose, a typically Western nose. Not usually a fan, to be honest, of oud in general. I've got like one or two ouds. I've got The Night by Frederick Malle, and I've got Oud Palau. And really, I feel like that has satisfied my curiosity for oud completely. These are to civilize. They feel colonial in a way, you know. They're to civilize the Eastern heathen material that everybody seems to love, you know. The pagan mumbo jumbo oud, which smells exotic, and it feels like we've tried to bring it to heel in Western perfumery, and frankly it feels pretty terrible and smells pretty terrible most of the time, if we're being honest. Western tempted oud. Christophe Laudermiel has made the best attempt with these, and he has made other ouds for, and other spicy, like Amber Absolute, those kind of fragrances. That's his kind of forte. That's what he seems to be doing at the minute. That seems to be his area of interest, you know. For me, these are a halfway house. They're very well made. I just feel that the idea behind them isn't very good. We'll try Dead of Night. Okay, this is a more oudy rose, traditional sort of Eastern. It's more Eastern. It's not all the way Eastern, but it's more Eastern. It's a lot spicier. It's got that kind of sharp, slightly ambery, fresh kind of feel. It's, you know, if I didn't know any better, I'd say this had cologne in it, right? But I'm sure that it hasn't. but it feels like it. It's got that kind of there's a 90s vibe to it, a mid to late 90s vibe. But then there's this oud, and like a potent oud, like a strong oud, not a particularly good oud, but a potent one, you know. Just trying to get my camera to focus properly. If this video is out of focus, I'll be ill. This is much more. Imagine, I'll tell you, this is a good analogy for it, right? Imagine traveling eastwards, but always facing westwards. So you've got your back to where you're heading. Does that make sense? This is, for some reason, and I have no idea why, it could be the violet leaf in it, which brings us to like Fahrenheit. Or it could be like the incense, which makes it very dry. But I get this feeling of cologne from it. And I did when it was on skin. It dries down a lot more civilized, which shows the skill of the perfumer. But I feel like again that the idea behind these was it was built with feet of clay. It was built on sand, whatever analogy you want to use. I don't know that I'm going to smell all of these again, because frankly, I don't think they're worth going over again. But there is another one that I wanted to touch on, which was particularly offensive to me. And that one, and I know there are some people that like it, and fair play to them, because there's no accounting for taste, and maybe it's me, but there's one of them in particular that is particularly rotten, and that is Silence the Sea. Silence the Sea. It's not as bad in the dry down, the far dry down, okay? But this is vile. It just smells horrible. It smells like decay. It smells like rot. My friend described it as rotten fish in bilge water at the bottom of a leaky boat. In like a rotten, decrepit old port. You know, and that is what it smells like. I mean, it really does have the worst aspects of the sea about it. Like a rotten catch of fish left in the bottom of a leaky boat with some water sloshing about in the bottom, decay, salty air. This kind of, you know, on boats where you get like the bacteria on the outsides of the boats, and sometimes they'll use antibiotics to get like the scum off the boat. That's what it smells like. It smells like sea scum. The angelica, the ambergris. It doesn't, and the narcissus, that, and the tuberose with that greenness and the saltiness, and it's awful. I like ozonic fragrances are pleasant. This is a deeply unpleasant ozonic fragrance, you know. Like the smell of like when you go to the beach and you smell the ozone and the salt in the air is usually lovely. Everybody likes going to the beach and smelling the ozone and the salt in the air. This smells like decay, like an ill wind from the sea. It smells like an unwashed fisherman after like a week on a boat and all these fish have gone off. It's I can't believe I'm about to say this. Perversely, it's extremely well made. If that was the idea was for them to make that perfume like that, then they've nailed it. Christophe Laudermiel has nailed it. This is making the end of my tongue burn. I haven't licked it, don't worry, but it's got that. It's foul. Like, it's got like a foul, decaying, like consumed by like algae kind of smell. You know, when you see algae running up a wall, you know, sea walls, you see algae running up the side of them, and and it's got that smell. It's fucking disgusting. And I've had this on skin a couple of times because there are sometimes a perfume will smell terrible on you the first time you put it on. You're like, ooh, and you can't judge it on that. So I've worn it a couple of times on skin, at least twice, maybe 3 times. I can't remember now. And each time, it has just reinforced my original opinion of it, that it was bad. And it is and it is bad. The Angelica and the Ambergris jar hugely. The tuberose and the Narcissus give it this kind of death, decay, rot, ill kind of feel. That's what it feels. It feels like illness. You know, like it feels like infection. That's the kind of that's what it evokes for me. It's not great. As pleasant as Melt My Heart is, which is incredibly pleasant. The iris note in that is really beautiful. Chocolate iris seems to be a thing at the minute. I've smelled a few perfumes with a chocolate iris kind of vibe. This is one of them. If you wanted to go out on a date, if you wanted to smell expensive, and it does smell expensive, that one, that would be the one to buy. That would be the one to wear, I should say, not buy. And that brings me on to the real crime that's being committed here, which is the price. You will hear a lot of reviewers or a lot of people talk and say, just talk about them without talking about the price. No, don't talk about them without talking about the price. That means you're taking them out of context. Right? I understand why people say don't talk about the price, just talk about the quality of the smells. Right? If I was going to do that, what I would say is that these are incredibly well made. They've used very good materials, but the idea and the inspiration behind them is absolutely terrible. The idea of this whole East meets West thing, like Eastern materials for a Western audience. The Chinese used to make ceramics and pottery, right? And they still do, I imagine. But they used to have an internal and an export market. What they would do is, right, is they would take their third and fourth rate ceramics and sell them for export, right? And they would keep all their most exquisite and beautiful, even their first and second and third rate stuff for the internal market. The best of the best went to the emperor. The next best went to the ruling classes and the civil service. And then the next best went to like civilians who wanted like stuff. And then the rest of it went for export, and we were over in the east, over in the west. We were like, "This is incredible! This is amazing! We've never seen anything remotely like this before. Isn't it amazing?" That feels like what these are. These feel like Eastern perfumes for a Western audience, or the West's attempt at making exquisite oud perfumes. They have taken someone who is very talented at what they do in Christophe Laudamiel and asked him to work with these, I imagine, very exciting materials for him, because they smell expensive to me, and I am a Western nose with only a passing interest in oud, like a very passing interest, a very brief interest in oud, and even I can tell a mile away that these aren't like great oud oils, you know. These aren't complex, deep ouds. They don't showcase the oud. They showcase Western sensibilities and our perceived superiority by trying to incorporate them in the ouds into our perfume. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it's a shame. But it just doesn't. There's one of these in here. I'm sure it's this one, and it just literally just smells like Promise. Not Promise. The Moon. I've had the Moon. Fall into Stars. Fall into Stars just smells like the Moon. The price of these is scandalous. These are perfumes for people with too much money. These are perfumes so that people can say, when somebody asks, or when it comes up in conversation, they can say, "Oh, it's $1,000 bottle of perfume. My perfume costs $800. It's got real oud in it. It's oud. It's flex. It's not very good, but that's not the point." You often find, or most of the time, you will find that people with a lot of money rarely have taste. And that's what these are for. They're Veblen goods. Veblen goods are goods that are priced at a high price point, and that is to make them look better than they are. And that's what these are. There is no justification for the price, not in the quality, not in the end product at all. People praising these on the internet, people saying they smell amazing. Maybe their noses are better than mine. I don't know. Maybe they got their stuff for free. That sounds a lot more likely. Sorry if that sounds fucking arrogant, but I pay for my stuff. I have every right to say what I say about this. And for the money, these are scandalous. These are scandalous. Again, technically brilliant. Christophe Laudamiel, very good perfumer. Makes very good modern perfumes. Doesn't make shit perfumes. Doesn't crank out like hundreds of perfumes a year, you know? Doesn't rework the same thing over and over and over and over again like a lot of perfumers do. But there's only so much he can do. These are flex perfumes. They're perfumes for a certain section of society. Do you know what I mean? They are for people with too much money and not enough taste, and they don't know what to do with their money. The type of people who wear those fucking ridiculous fucking clothes that cost like thousands and thousands of dollars, and everybody knows they cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and that's why they wear them. The clothes don't look good. They look ridiculous. They're overstated. They look cheap. But everybody knows they cost a lot of money. That's what these perfumes are. They are the olfactive equivalent of fast fashion. They're not built to last. These have been out for 10 years. I don't know who the money is behind this perfume brand, but they come across a bit like Xerjoff. They already had a lot of money and they wanted to create a perfume brand. And they didn't know what they were doing, frankly, because the briefs for these it's got to be the briefs that's wrong with these, because they're made brilliantly. Like I say, it's got to be whoever smelled Silence the Sea at the end and said, yes, that's what I want, has got some serious fucking like explaining and or fucking thinking to do about themselves. It's nasty. It's nasty stuff. But I don't know. There are some people out there who like fucking strange smelling. But that, to me, that smells like the decay of like fucking like the far decay, not recently deceased either. You know, there's like bones sticking out and shit. And fucking bacteria growing, and fucking if you keep breathing that air, like you'll catch something. It's fucking, should have called them fucking strange miasma. Anyway, rant over. I won't be buying any of these. The only one I'm even remotely tempted to buy is Melt My Heart. And it is absolutely beautiful. If there was a half price sale, if there was a bottle that do 10 mils for like 120, that's ridiculous. Like, that's just a slap in the face, you know? It's at the point where I don't want to buy them because of the principle of the thing, which is never a good thing for any brand. You're putting people's backs up so much that they don't want to fucking buy them because of the principle of it. Melt My Heart is a lovely fragrance. Release that at half the price, maybe even more, 30% of the price. Get it down to 200, 300 for a bottle. Like, maybe I'd buy it for a 100 ml bottle. But they're taking the piss. And the price is the real crime. Along with the fact that whoever wrote the briefs for them just had no idea. There's liking perfume and then there's knowing perfume. Thanks very much, everybody. I will see you all again soon. Bye.